Hi, Ellen. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Elisha. And I'm so
Beautiful.
happy to be with you and speaking with your
Yeah,
listeners
thank you.
today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I am also so excited to have you on the show for some reasons. All right. You
Okay.
know, going through your profile, I discovered that myself and my audience are definitely going to benefit from your insight. And firstly, I love to seek knowledge. I believe it takes the application of knowledge for one to move from a difficult situation to a pleasant one. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
And now, the second reason why I'm excited to have Aline on the show is I believe there are some things that Aline knows that some of my audience needs to hear you say this stuff, directly from your mouth in order to experience transformation. I firmly
Yeah.
believe that. And thirdly, that is I myself, I believe I am going to learn one or two things from your story, your insight, and your experiences. So for that reason, Ellen, I want us to get started with your introduction, your journey, how the journey has been so far, the challenges that you faced, and how
Mhm.
you overcame them. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Ellen, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. My name is Helene Gidley, and I'm a co-founder of a company called A2 Agile, and we help companies on their transformations to using agile techniques and practices generally in their software development teams. And that's where the agile practices really began. And we help them through various things on coaching, consulting, on-site training to engage their teams and help them make that shift over to this slightly different way of thinking. And I guess my journey on using these techniques started, back in over 10 years ago in managing my own time. And being a project manager and a scrum master and a coach for other teams, we were teaching them these techniques for managing their work and getting their business work done. But I found that my own personal time was always struggling with getting enough done and being able to manage my time. And I'm finding that, especially post COVID, so much of our business and personal lives are, intertwined. And you just cannot separate the two. When you're at home, supposedly doing home things, you'll get work phone calls and you'll get work emails and pings through various communication methods. And likewise, when you're at work, you'll get interactions and interruptions from your home life. So we can't look at work tasks and home tasks as two separate things. They're really all one that I need to manage, right? Because they can happen at any time during the day or evening, on our schedules. And that's when I started looking to the agile techniques that we use with our software development teams. Well, we're successful in managing their time and helping the teams get work done as they had planned. Why can't I use that for my own personal work? And that's what really had me develop this practice that I call the Art of Agile Living to enable me and others to really manage the the amount of work and distractions that are vying for our attention these days.
Beautiful. That is a great solution you're offering. And
Yeah.
that's really good. I love that because you see, most people are suffering from distraction, which is making their time not being spent well, making
Yeah.
them mismanage their time. So now getting to listen to Elaine speak now, that's that's a good thing they'll begin to feel because now we have someone who would help us, solve this problem.
Exactly. And you said it right, Elisha. It's the distractions that are so detrimental to our ability to get things done. And when you ask people, why is it that you feel stressed, that you feel inability to get the work, the projects done that you had on your to-do lists, So often the number one answer is, I just don't have the time. I have too many things happening. I just don't have the time to get things done. And in the end, I think your statement is more accurate, that it is most likely you've got the time. It's just we're having difficulty really managing it because of so many distractions and so many interruptions that are coming at us. So if we can find a way to help us identify the work that needs to be done and focus on the work, and put other things away and focus on the work and get things done faster. That is by doing things in smaller chunks so that I can fit it in to the kind of day that I tend to have, that many of us tend to have, that is so filled with interruptions, distractions, hard demands on our time, like meetings, events that we have to attend, places we need to be for ourselves, for our families. They're hard demands on our time. And that makes it hard for us to get big chunks of time to be able to do big projects. And the more I talk to people, the more I hear that story being played out, that I never get started on the big things, or I can't make any progress on them because I can never get that kind of uninterrupted time. And that's true. So let's stop trying to get big chunks of uninterrupted time. Let's take the work for all these projects, be they work, be they home, be they play, and break them down into smaller chunks that I can get done in anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour,
Mm,
and various bits in between, right? Break it down into smaller chunks. And well, can you get 5 minutes of uninterrupted time in your day? Probably. Can you get 15 minutes? Can you get maybe 30? Great. Make that the size that you try to get some of your tasks done in. And I'm not saying to do them haphazardly or partially. What I'm asking is that we reframe the work that we do into smaller, valuable pieces of deliverables that we can fit into those smaller chunks. And that is the heart of what we ask our software teams, and we ask our teams that are using these agile methodologies to do. Break the work down into smaller chunks. So it's just a matter of taking that and being able to use it for everything else that's coming at us in our lives to help us get on top of that work and start feeling less stressed in our day,
mm,
and that feeling, that motivation of actually getting things done, right? That the positive motivation of completing some task that you had in a piece of work, and that lovely kind of dopamine kick that you get when you find something complete and you can mark it done and you're ready to move on to the next. It's actually a bit addictive in a very positive way. And that's what we really capitalize on in helping to motivate people. And
beautiful.
when I talk about breaking things down,
Yeah.
one of my tricks, in case you're going to ask, right? How
Yeah.
do I start breaking things down? I gave you, like, do it in 5 minutes or to a half an hour. But I also use these very small 1 inch by 2 inch sticky notes. So
Okay.
it has to fit onto that little sticky note.
Mm,
And that's one of my keys. And these sticky notes go onto paper, and that becomes my planning sheet for the day. And I've put everything on there. And I really work at reframing what I do to make it valuable, but something that I can get done in smaller chunks.
beautiful. That was well said and well explained. And your
Thank you.
method is actually very practical. I love it. Okay. Um, shall we get started with the questions, Helen?
Certainly. I'd love to hear
Oh,
your question.
okay. So let us talk about your book for a moment. What is the
Mhm.
one thing about your book that will help people get things done?
And I feel the one thing that they can utilize in the book and even start using today without running out and having the book in front of them is that bit of beginning to break our work into smaller chunks. right? And which is why I start with talking about that, because I really believe out of all these other techniques that we can talk about, it's reframing that work so that I can get something accomplished in a smaller time period that gets me that progress moving forward. So I'll give an example. I gave a talk at a associate's class about a year ago. It was at the university here in Michigan in the United States, and it was one of their brown bag luncheons. And she was a professor, and she was asking me to give a talk on these practices to her class and other colleagues. So that task, right, is give talk to Madi's group. Okay, well, that's pretty big. Give the talk. Well, what does it mean? Well, I started to break it down into, oh, well, she was asking for an abstract and a bio and, a headshot picture. So I started to break it down into small bits. Like, all right, let's write up a draft of the abstract and run it by her. Next I have slides. And now that I've talked with her, I probably need to do a modification of the slide deck. Well, let's do a draft modification. Let's insert one or two ideas that are specific to her class. Let's come back and do another modification that updates some images. Let's do another modification after I read through it. So I'm touching that, in this example, I'm touching that slide deck 3 and 4 and 5 times, but I'm doing it in small chunks each time. And each time I get something done, I get to look at it, think about it, and then come back again. And that's my one example of how one, quote, task started to break itself down into many little ones that I could come back and iterate through. So that's my one tip, is to start thinking about your projects that way of, how can I do small little bits, early drafts, early iterations to help get some momentum going in what you've got going.
Beautiful. I got that. I got that. Okay, can you tell us about your holiday gathering story? You know, the method,
Oh,
that helped make
yes.
planning a family gathering less stressful and more fun.
Absolutely. That is one of my most favorite stories. And it's using a variation of my method. And here's the story. I was actually at a conference a few years ago as an attendee and a speaker, but I was an attendee at this one session, and this the woman up at the front was presenting her method, and it was going to be a little interactive session. And she just almost breezes by how she utilizes this method in various ways. And she has one slide up on the screen that is showing a bunch of sticky notes on her kitchen cabinets. And her comment was, well, I was using this to help manage things going in and out of the oven for a big holiday gathering. And like her constraint was the oven and how long things needed to be in the oven. And she had one oven, right? A lot of us have that challenge. So I could see what she was doing, and that slide kind of blew by. And I just kept looking at that and said, there's something bigger about that story. And what it came to me as is, what happens when we have a holiday gathering at our houses? Let's say it's any major holiday or a birthday party or a party you're throwing, and you've got good friends and family arriving. And what's the first thing that nearly everybody asks when they come to the house for this gathering? They look at you and say, oh, gosh, Helene, is there anything I can do to help? And what do we almost always answer with? No, I've got this covered. Go sit down, go grab a drink, make yourself comfortable. And in the end, do you have things covered? Chances are you're running around crazy. It's just everything in your head saying, I've got this one oven. I have all these constraints on the oven. Someone's got to mash the potatoes. Someone's got to make gravy. We've got to get the turkey out and carved, and, a million other things going on. And you don't have it all covered, and you're stressed. So I took what I saw that she did on her kitchen cabinets and said, what if I took all of the tasks that I'm trying to get done for this holiday gathering, and I wrote them on. I used slightly bigger stickies. I used more the 3x3 stickies, and I put them on a door wall that I have in the kitchen. It could be any big flat surface. And I just had a list, a column that says to do, a doing column, and a done column. So I put a whole pile of things, everything from as small as put plates on the table, put silverware on the table, put water in the water glasses on the table, right? I kept them small, put napkins on the table. And so now my very next holiday gathering, I'm all excited. I've got this wall up there. People come in. What can I do to help? I bring them over and say, here, pick one. Okay. They kind of looked at it and went, oh, all right. Well, next thing you know, I've got people picking up things like, oh, well, I'll do the plates, or I'll get the chairs up from the basement. And my daughter-in-law grabbed the napkin one. Now she's very creative. I love my daughter-in-law, and she grabbed the napkin, and next thing I know, she took those green napkins and did some magic napkin origami and made little Christmas trees out of them with my napkin ring as an ornament around the top. And everybody
Wow,
had a little Christmas tree on their plate.
that's so
It
beautiful.
was magic. And what happened is I let go of controlling everything. I let others take the reins on some of those things, and I got something far better than I could have done on my own. I do not do napkin origami. I do not make Christmas trees with my napkins, but she did. And that to me was one of the best stories. And everybody did participate. They chipped in. And I found out, best of all, Elisha, is that people want to help. That when they come, and I think about it myself, when I come to someone's house and it's for a large gathering, you would like to be a little useful other than feeling like a burden that I don't want you to wait on me. I can go find the water and get a drink. Just let me have at it. And it ties in with how people would like to help you work your way through the holiday event. And at the end, we had all the stickies on the other side on the done column, and we took everything down off the board and, just had a lovely time of it. And the best of all, and the finishing touch to all of this is, a few months later, we were going over to that same daughter-in-law and son's house as new homeowners. They had a bunch of little projects that we offered to help them get done. We figured it'd be fun to go visit with them, and we can help them out as new homeowners on various construction and small little projects. So we arrive at the house for the weekend, our little weekend visit, and what do I see on my daughter-in-law's door wall in her kitchen? But a whole pile of sticky notes of all these little things that need to get done. And she even broke them down into things that dad and son can do and stuff that daughter-in-law and mom can do. And we just had a perfect time of it. And I loved seeing that replication of the process of her using that. And I felt my time was respected. And I felt that we were honored to be able to, have this here. And we worked our way through. At the end of the weekend, we got it all done. So that's my story. Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. Right, right. So I guess my final thought is take that plunge to maybe let go a little bit on some of the things, like I did with my holiday gathering. The willingness to let go as I break things into smaller chunks and letting other people manage it. So I might suggest try that, and as your technique, and learning how to break things into smaller chunks. And if you'd like to reach out to me, I'm available on LinkedIn as Helene Gidley, and you can learn more about the book that I have, which will look like this, The Art of Agile Living, and it's available on artofagileliving.com. You can go straight to a website dedicated to the book, and you can gather information on it. I have small little tutorials and videos that are available to anyone right out on YouTube on the practice. So I encourage you to go seek out that information, and please connect up with me. I'd love to chat. You're very welcome, and thank you for having me. This was delightful.